Jimmy Butler called it the worst part of his entire career. Not the losses, not the drama, not the trade rumors, the ACL injury, and he said it himself loud and clear, right in the middle of Warriors offseason mode. Butler came out with a direct message to the fan base in Golden State, admitting that tearing his ACL was the single most devastating moment he has experienced as a professional basketball player. Think about what that means coming from a guy who has been through everything. 2 NBA Finals runs with Miami, playoff battles that went to the absolute limit, leadership drama that shook franchises, and yet, through all of that noise, the injury is what hit him hardest. That tells you everything about how badly he wants to be on the court competing. This is not a guy who is content sitting on the sideline collecting a check. Butler is a warrior in every sense of the word, and the Golden State Warriors faithful need to understand what kind of fire is about to come back into that locker room when he is healthy and locked in. Now let us get into the real depth of what Butler actually said and why it matters so much right now. The statement came out during what has been a very active Warriors offseason, and the timing is not random. Butler is sending a signal. He is telling the organization, the fans, and every single team in the league that he is coming back with something to prove. An ACL tear at his stage of his career is no small thing. The recovery process is brutal, mentally and physically, and the fact that he is already speaking publicly with this kind of intensity and conviction suggests he is deep into his rehab and he is hungry. Butler described the injury as the worst part of his career, which is a loaded statement from someone who also publicly clashed with front offices and went through one of the most talked about exits in Heat history. The fact that a physical injury outweighs all of that emotional chaos in his mind tells you how serious his mindset is right now. He is not dwelling on the past drama. He is focused on coming back stronger than ever and contributing to Golden State at the highest possible level. Here is where it gets really interesting though, and this is the part that should spark a real conversation among Warriors fans. Butler left Miami after years of being one of the most polarizing but undeniably impactful players that franchise ever had. Former Heat swingman Max Strus recently opened up about Butler's unpredictable personality, describing mood swings that even his own teammates could not fully decode. Strus literally said he would wake up wondering what he had done the night before just because Butler would come in with a completely different energy from one day to the next. That is wild. That is the kind of personality you are dealing with. And yet, that same unpredictability, that same edge, that same refusal to be ordinary is exactly what makes Butler a nightmare for opponents when he is fully locked in and physically healthy. The Warriors are not getting a comfortable, easygoing locker room presence. They are getting a force of nature who demands excellence from himself and everyone around him. Some teams cannot handle that. The question is whether Golden State can channel it into something special. This changes a tremendous amount for the Warriors heading into the 2026-27 season. Think about what a fully healthy Jimmy Butler brings to this roster. His ability to get to the free throw line is elite. His defensive intensity is the kind of thing that shifts the entire culture of a team. His clutch performance in high-stakes moments is well documented. The Warriors have been navigating this offseason with real uncertainty around multiple roster spots, and having Butler healthy and motivated coming back from the worst experience of his career could be the defining factor in how this team competes for a championship. He is not coming back to average 20 minutes and be a complimentary piece. He is coming back to be a leader, a closer, and a problem that opposing coaches have to lose sleep over. Golden State needed this kind of public declaration from him. It sends a message to the entire league that the Warriors are not rebuilding. They are reloading, and their best weapon is fueled by something deeply personal right now. TYPEKMES, is Jimmy Butler gonna come back better than ever? Yes or no? Alright, let us talk about something that has been bubbling under the surface all off-season and just exploded into full public view. There is a legitimate, seriously discussed scenario floating around right now where the Golden State Warriors trade Stephen Curry to the Houston Rockets. Read that sentence again. Stephen Curry, gone to Houston, in exchange for what is being described as an exciting $172 million duo. And if that does not stop you cold in your tracks, then you are not paying attention to what this offseason has become for Golden State. This is not some random social media account throwing wild ideas into the void. This is an actual prediction being made about the direction of the Warriors franchise, and it is being paired with another piece of reporting that breaks down exactly what it would take for Golden State to even consider moving the greatest player in franchise history. Two separate stories, same terrifying conclusion. The Stephen Curry era in San Francisco could genuinely be approaching its final chapter. Let us dig into the details because this is where it gets really layered. The Warriors are entering what everyone is calling a pivotal offseason. Multiple top players, including Stephen Curry himself, are potentially facing free agency situations at the end of the upcoming season. That creates an enormous amount of front office pressure to make decisions now rather than risk losing assets for nothing down the road. The trade scenario involving Houston proposes that Golden State receives a combination of players valued at around $172 million in contracts, which would represent a significant investment from the Rockets in acquiring arguably the greatest shooter the sport has ever seen. Meanwhile, the separate reporting on what it would actually take to move Curry suggests the bar is extraordinarily high, as it should be. We are not talking about a typical star player trade. We are talking about dismantling the foundation that brought this franchise 4 championships and completely changed how the game of basketball is played globally. Here is the drama, and it is real. The fact that these conversations are even happening publicly means the Warriors organization has not shut this down with the kind of force you would expect if it were completely off the table. When a franchise is not trading someone, you usually hear nothing. Silence means exploration is happening at some level. Now, to be clear, Stephen Curry has been the heart and soul of this organization for his entire career. He is not just a player. He is the identity of the Golden State Warriors. Trading him would not just be a basketball decision. It would be a cultural earthquake that reshapes everything from merchandise to season ticket sales to how the entire league views this franchise going forward. But here is the other side of that coin. If the Warriors are staring down a future where Curry's best years are behind him, where rebuilding is inevitable, and where a massive haul from Houston could actually accelerate a new championship window, then a front office doing its job responsibly has to at least run those numbers. That is just reality. What does this mean for the Warriors right now? It means every single roster decision this offseason is being made under the shadow of this massive question mark. If Curry stays, you build around him for potentially 1 or 2 more serious championship runs. If Curry goes, you enter a complete identity reset that could take years to stabilize or could somehow fast-track a new era depending on what comes back. Neither path is simple, neither path is guaranteed. But the fact that the Rockets are being mentioned as a destination, that Houston has the assets and the ambition to make this kind of move, and that Golden State is described as being in a pivotal moment with unclear direction ahead, this is the biggest story of the Warriors offseason by a significant margin. The franchise is at a crossroads unlike anything it has faced since before the dynasty began, and Warriors fans deserve to have this conversation right now rather than be surprised by it later. If you are new here and you want real Warriors coverage every single day, hit that subscribe button right now. We are here for you every day. Stay right there because what is coming up next is going to hit different, and trust me, you are not ready for it. Kevin Durant, Jayson Tatum, 2 names that make every basketball fan stop scrolling immediately. Both of them are reportedly set to make their comeback during the 2026-27 season after suffering Achilles injuries, and the ripple effects of that news stretch all the way to Golden State whether the Warriors are directly involved or not. Let us start by just sitting with the magnitude of this for a second. Durant and Tatum returning from Achilles tears in the same season is the kind of storyline that reshapes power dynamics across the entire league. Achilles injuries are historically career-altering. The recovery timeline is long. The physical demands are enormous, and the mental battle to come back at an elite level after that kind of trauma is something very few players ever fully conquer. The fact that both of these players are apparently on track to return this coming season means the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference are both about to get significantly more competitive, and the Warriors need to factor that into everything they are planning right now. Here is what makes this story even more compelling when you dig into the details. Achilles comebacks are never straightforward. Every case is different, every player's body responds differently, and the length of time these players have been away from competitive basketball means there is going to be a period of readjustment regardless of how talented or experienced they are. Durant in particular is someone who has defied physical expectations throughout his career, so if anyone can come back from this kind of injury and look like a completely different kind of problem for opponents, it is him. Tatum, on the other hand, was arguably at the peak of his powers before going down, so the question of how much he can recapture immediately versus how long he might need to find his rhythm again is genuinely fascinating. The league has been operating without 2 of its biggest stars for a significant stretch, and now both of them are scheduled to walk back through the door at the same time. That is not a small thing. Now here is the twist that directly connects to Golden State and what makes this more than just a general league storyline. The Warriors are in the middle of their own offseason uncertainty, dealing with Jimmy Butler's ACL recovery, questions about Stephen Curry's future, and open roster spots that need to be filled with purpose. The return of Durant and Tatum changes the competitive landscape in ways that directly affect Golden State's ambitions. If the Warriors are trying to build toward a championship run this upcoming season, they need to understand that the competition level is about to escalate dramatically. Teams that were already formidable are about to get their stars back. That means the margins for Golden State are thinner. The need for the right roster construction is more urgent, and every single decision made between now and opening night carries more weight than it might have otherwise. The comeback stories are great for the league, but for the Warriors, they represent a heightened challenge. The impact on the Warriors specifically is about urgency and preparation. Golden State cannot afford to sleepwalk through this offseason banking on the competition being thin. With Durant potentially back at whatever version of himself he brings after the recovery, and Tatum eager to prove he can reclaim his elite status, the Western Conference and the entire playoff landscape become significantly more treacherous. The Warriors need their own roster in order. They need Butler back and healthy and performing, and they need to surround their core with the right pieces before any of these dominant forces are back on the floor competing at full speed. This is the kind of macro-level news that front offices use as motivation to stop debating and start deciding. Golden State cannot wait. The league is not going to pause for them, and two of its biggest stars are about to make sure of that in a very loud way. Klay Thompson is coming back to Chase Center. Let that sink in for a moment. One of the most beloved players in Warriors franchise history is going to walk back into that building on November 5th of the 2026-27 season. But he is not coming back as a Warrior. He is coming back wearing a Miami Heat jersey, and the schedule is confirmed. The Golden State Warriors will welcome Klay Thompson and the new-look Miami Heat to the Bay Area very early in the upcoming regular season. If you think this is just another regular season game on the calendar, you are completely underestimating what this moment is going to mean for the players, the coaching staff, and especially the fans inside Chase Center that night. This is the kind of game that sells out in minutes. This is the kind of game where the crowd energy is impossible to script. Klay Thompson, a four-time champion with Golden State, one of the greatest shooters ever to wear that blue and gold, coming home as the opposition. Circle that date. Let us talk about what makes this so emotionally loaded. Klay Thompson spent the most important years of his basketball life as a Golden State Warrior. He suffered devastating injuries as a Warrior, came back from those injuries as a Warrior, and built a legacy in the Bay that very few players anywhere in NBA history can match in terms of pure connection with a fan base. His departure to Miami was a transition that the entire Warriors universe had to process, and now the 2026-27 schedule is going to force a reckoning with that transition right at the start of a brand new season. November 5th is not that far into the year. The team will barely have found its rhythm. The fans will still be adjusting to the energy of a new season. And suddenly there is Klay standing on the other side of the court in a Heat uniform, ready to compete against the franchise that made him who he is. There is no roadmap for how to emotionally handle that as a fan. Here is the dramatic angle that everyone is going to be talking about leading up to this game. Miami has been described as a new-look Heat squad, which means Klay is not just showing up as a former Warrior making a nostalgic visit. He is showing up as part of a team with real ambitions, real talent, and a real desire to prove itself in the Western Conference road schedule. How is Klay going to play in that building? Is he going to go full bucket mode to prove he made the right choice leaving? Or is there going to be a hesitation, an emotional wait, a split second of something that only he will be able to feel when he hears that crowd react to his first touch of the ball? These are the human questions that make this game must-watch television and must attend if you can get a ticket. The basketball will matter, but the atmosphere is going to be absolutely electric in a way that transcends the win and loss column. For the Warriors as a franchise, this game carries real significance beyond just the emotional element. It is a measuring stick moment at the start of the season. How does the current Golden State roster respond to playing against a motivated, familiar face in a charged environment? Does the team use the occasion to make a statement about who they are without Klay, and with whoever has taken on a larger role in the lineup? This game will tell Warriors fans something important about the identity and character of this group right at the beginning of the year. It also gives Jimmy Butler, if he is back and healthy by then, a massive early stage to establish himself as the alpha presence on this team. The Warriors need to win that game not just for the standings but for the statement. Klay coming home is going to be a party, but Golden State needs to make sure the ending belongs to the home team. Dear Op IT at each commentis, are you excited to see Klay back at Chase Center, or is it going to be too emotional to handle? The Jonathan Kuminga situation is still dragging on, and it just took a turn that Warriors fans need to pay very close attention to right now. Reports are surfacing that Kuminga appears to prefer one of his suitors over the other, as he remains unsigned in free agency following the Atlanta Hawks declining to pick up his option. This is huge. A young, athletically gifted forward with genuine upside is still sitting on the open market, and he has a preference for where he ends up. The question that Warriors fans are screaming right now is whether Golden State is still in this picture and whether Kuminga's preference is pointing toward or away from a potential return to the Bay Area. Because this storyline has been dragging on all offseason, and every day that passes without a signature creates more uncertainty, but also more opportunity for the right team to swoop in with the right offer and close this thing out before the final roster spots around the league disappear. Let us go deeper into the actual situation here. The Hawks declining Kuminga's option was itself a significant moment. It meant Atlanta made a hard evaluation and decided the financial commitment did not match the projected value they expected to get in return. That is a business decision, but for Kuminga personally, it had to sting. You are a player with obvious physical tools, obvious potential, and a team essentially tells you they would rather move in a different direction than commit to your future. That creates a free agent situation with a complicated backdrop. Kuminga is not entering the market as someone with leverage built on a long track record of elite production. He is entering it as a talent project, a high-ceiling guy who needs the right situation to fully develop and prove what he can actually become at the NBA level. That makes team fit and organizational philosophy critical factors in his decision-making, which is why the reported preference for one suitor over another matters so much. Here is the real drama buried inside this story. The Golden State Warriors still have 2 open roster spots according to reports, and the front office has been urged to take a serious look at multiple available players before all the roster pieces around the league fall into place. Kuminga played for Golden State earlier in his career, so he knows the system. He knows the culture, and he knows what it feels like to develop under that organization's structure. If his preference leans toward returning to familiar ground, or if the Warriors are the team making the most competitive offer right now, this could come together quickly. But if his preference is pointing toward a fresh start somewhere else, then Golden State needs to shift its attention to other available options before those spots evaporate. Either way, the Warriors' front office is operating in real time with real stakes, and this Kuminga situation is one of the most direct free agency dominoes still waiting to fall. The impact on the Warriors roster could be genuinely significant depending on how this resolves. A healthy and motivated Kuminga reuniting with Golden State would give the team a versatile young piece who can contribute defensively and athletically in ways that complement the existing core. It would also be a statement about the Warriors' ability to attract and retain talent that started its NBA journey in their system. On the other hand, if Kuminga goes elsewhere, Golden State needs to use those remaining roster spots wisely on players who bring specific skills the current lineup is missing. Brandon Williams has also been mentioned as someone the Warriors should seriously consider before making their final decisions. The front office has flexibility but not unlimited time. The league is moving fast, other teams are locking in their rosters, and Golden State cannot afford to be passive while the available talent pool shrinks around them. Kuminga's decision is coming soon, and whatever he chooses, the Warriors need to be ready to respond immediately and fill those spots with purpose. Make sure you check out the video on the left and the video on the right before you leave today. Both of them are going to give you everything you need to stay ahead of the latest Warriors news. Alright, that is a wrap on today's biggest stories. Jimmy Butler is coming back hungry and calling his ACL injury the worst moment of his career. Stephen Curry trade rumors to Houston are real and the Warriors are at a crossroads. Durant and Tatum are both set to return this season and the competition level is about to explode. Klay Thompson is coming back to Chase Center on November 5th wearing a Heat jersey, and it is going to be one of the most emotional nights in recent Warriors history. And Jonathan Kuminga is still unsigned with a preference starting to emerge that could directly affect Golden State's final roster spots. That is the Warriors universe today. We will be back tomorrow with more. Let us go.